Somehow, some way, the 49ers managed to get a contract extension done before September. Who knew it could be done? And what does it mean for the future of the team? We'll talk about it all on Stats and Cohn, brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. What is good, everybody? Welcome to Stats and Cohn on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Grant Cohn. Grant, you are at Levi's Stadium once again.
That's right. I take this show so seriously. It can't be any other background. It's got to be a special Stats and Cohn background. And so I talked to Jed, I talked to Kyle, I talked to John. They said it would be okay if I'd be here. So thank you.
Go. Well, somehow you managed to have that meeting with John Lynch while he was also working on a contract extension for Deommodore Lenoir. That was the best news ever last night. I'm sitting on my couch. I'm watching, I don't even know what the heck I was. I think Great British Baking Show my wife had on. All of a sudden, alert pops up. Deommodore Lenoir, 5-year, $92 million contract extension. And like, the first reaction I had was just like, is this real? I could not believe it. Like, this is fantastic for the 49ers. I had no notes on my instant reaction show. It was like, this is nothing but good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's everyone's first reaction for a lot of reasons. One of them being that I think everyone likes Deommodore Lenoir. He's been here. He's a 5th-round pick. We saw the ascension from guy sort of hanging on by a thread to his dream to always a starter, always really good. And like, as he's improved, his personality has come out. I think it's easy to root for him, and he's a great story. So, and he's a hell of a player. And it's if the Niners weren't going to give him $18.4 million a year, some other team would have gladly. So the Niners have a quality corner who can play inside and outside, who they developed through his 20s. Like, that's all great. It's all terrific. The question I have with this move has nothing about Lenoir. It's really just the Niners are they're like deeply committed to a lot of players. Their core group of cornerstone players is like 9 deep. And that's, I still like my, I don't like to, but I feel like you need to question the 49ers roster building strategies because they haven't won a Super Bowl yet. And it's always interesting to compare them or anyone to the Chiefs, because I don't think this is a move the Chiefs would have done for what it's worth.
Shocking that you would take that position. I want to get to it in a second, but I actually used you as an example yesterday. I said, this move is so good, and here's how you know it's good. And I threw up this tweet from you talking about it. Well, I said, when Grant's reaction is, I love the Deommodore Lenoir extension, you know it's a good move by the team. So I just wanted to give you a little credit for that. Because
I do love the move. And I do think it's interesting. Like, they didn't pay that much for him. They essentially gave him the Charvarius Ward deal. Now, it seems like more money, but the cap has gone up. I think when we see the particulars of the deal, he's essentially getting that slot. And this year, Charvarius Ward, his cap number is $18.4 million. So it seems like maybe that was the starting point of what it would take to bring back Lenoir. And it's not too much. It's not too much.
Oh, it's
still,
great.
it's a move that the Chiefs wouldn't do. And it doesn't mean that the Chiefs are perfect, that you have to copy them. But the Chiefs have the expensive quarterback. The Niners are transitioning from roster that you pay everyone but the quarterback to now the quarterback's going to be the highest paid player, presumably. And some of these cornerstone guys are going to have to go, and it won't be Lenoir.
No, it won't be Lenoir. I was just double checking. Trent McDuffie was drafted in 2022. So he's the corner that they're going to have to pay. You would think. Right? He's on a rookie deal. Well, we'll have to see. I suppose,
because they didn't pay Charvarius Ward and they didn't pay L'Jarius Sneed, who are both excellent cornerbacks. But maybe if the guy plays in the slot, maybe that's why Lenoir is going to be here long term, because he's so valuable. You can put him anywhere, and you can put him on anyone.
I like the flexibility. I also, the fact that he's only 12th right now in average per year among corners, that deal's only going to look better when new guys re-sign every year like that. This contract is going to age like wine. It's going to be fantastic. I agree with your point of, you can't say anything bad about paying Deommodore Lenoir. He's a ascending player who's young and really good, and the contract is reasonable by all stretches. When we zoom out and take a bigger picture look at what the 49ers are doing with their roster, are they making the right choices? And the thing that jumped out to me is because of this draft class, Grant, they sort of have their new core already. Take a look at these players on the 49ers that are 25 or under. You've got 7 guys: Brock, Ricky Pearsall, Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, Deommodore Lenoir, and Bernardo Green. That's 7 guys that are good.
You missed one.
Great. Who did
You
I
missed one.
It's not all the players that are 25 or under. These are just
Okay.
that I think are really good right now.
Well, I would add Jordan Mason to that group.
Yeah.
Would. Oh, excuse me?
He's not the
What are the
starter.
He was. He's still one of the top 10 leading rushers in the league. He's going to be a starter on some other team next year. You better hope it's not the Rams.
So, but these are the guys that are going to be here. They're going to be around. They already look like they're good to great players. So that's 7 guys. That's almost an entire side of the ball, 25 or younger, that you can build around. And this doesn't include guys that are in their mid-20s right now, like Brandon Ayuk, who, coming off major injury, Dre Greenlaw coming off major injury. But like the second core of this team, the core that's going to make that next run, is already here.
Yes, and that's a great thing. And what's interesting is that the Niners still have a large core of older players. Or players who are highly paid. I want to go through that. Which guys need to be here and which guys maybe shouldn't. I think Lenoir at 25. Corners are expensive, but I like it. Essentially, I like this one. But let's just make a list of all the guys who are essentially being paid to be cornerstone players, starting on offense. Trent, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey, and then Purdy next year. That'll be 6 on offense. And then on defense, it's Bosa, Hargrave, Warner, Lenoir. So 10 cornerstone players. And that's a lot. And that's great. It's great to have 10 Pro Bowl caliber players. But then you got a thin D-line, Devondre Campbell starting, and I think the Niners used to be so much stronger in the front 7 in particular. And I think we're going to see that become more mediocre, kind of what we see right now.
Well, I do wonder if it's a shift in philosophy a little bit, because forever the 49ers have told us we build the teams from the lines out. In the Super Bowls, what they found was the quarterbacks can either run around and extend the play or get the ball out of their hands so fast that even if you have a really good front 7, they kind of can't really do anything about it. And I do wonder if, even if they don't admit it publicly, the 49ers have sort of realized, you know what? We got to have a better second. We got to build our defense starting with the secondary, because there's too many good quarterbacks and there's too many things they can do schematically to mitigate our pass rush and our front 7. So that's why they sort of have their secondary locked up right now. It's Brown, it's Green, it's Mustafa, and it's Lenoir. That's going to be their secondary for the next few years. And I almost wonder if they were like, we'll have to try and do better on the offensive line, but we got to lock down our secondary. And that's part of the reason why Lenoir has this contract on November 12th.
Yeah, absolutely. And because if they don't lock Lenoir down now and he hits free agency, they won't get him for 18.4, and he'll probably leave, and Travarius Ward could leave too. And then you're trying to give that contract slot to someone that you don't know as well. So at least they get a guy that they're very familiar with. But again, I want to keep comparing the Niners to the Chiefs, because the Chiefs are the gold standard, to use the phrase of the day, gold standard. So the Chiefs here are their cornerstone players. Tell me if you disagree. I'm just going based on who they're paying. Mahomes, of course, Joe Tooney, Travis Kelce, Jawan Taylor, Creed Humphrey, Chris Jones, Justin Reed, who will be a free agent after this year. So essentially they have 7, and it's a quarterback, a tight end, 3 offensive linemen, 1 D lineman, 1 safety. I think that's interesting. Why are those the positions they invest in? Well, the quarterback's super expensive. You got to protect him. They don't mess around there. They give him a go-to guy, but not a wide receiver. Tight ends are cheaper. They have a sort of a quarterback of the defense, but he's not a corner. He's a safety, because safeties are cheaper than corners. I think they think that stuff through, and the Niners are paying premiums for wide receivers and corners. And those are important positions too, but they're expensive. And the 2 wide receivers they're paying right now, Debo and Ayuk, really good players, but man, those are 2 that the Chiefs would not pay.
it's difficult to compare teams. Well, first of all, it's difficult because the Chiefs have been winning for so damn long. They've won it both ways, right? They've won it when they've had really good wide receivers, and they've won it without really good wide receivers because they're just really freaking good.
Right.
I think it depends on what your roster is, what are the strengths of the players that you have, right? Like Mahomes is so damn good that you can almost put any kind of offense with him. Like if you have to get a bunch of receivers, if you get lucky in the draft and the receivers you pick end up being really good, then that's great. Mahomes will be great. But if you don't, if you have, a decent running back and Travis Kelce and just kind of guys around him, he's still good enough to compensate. So he almost makes you right no matter what you do. The jerk.
Yeah, but Brock's even better than Mahomes, as we've established. I'm just kidding. So, but what I do want to say though is, look, the cornerstone guy the Niners have to make a space for in their contract salary table for the future, and not anytime soon, but in a few years, is Purdy. Purdy is a cornerstone player at a very critical position. So Debo is here for a couple more years, but like the era of spending $50 million a year or whatever that's going to be down the line on two wide receivers, I think that's going to be over. And I think the Niners can feel confident they don't have to do that when they look at what Jawan Jennings is doing, when they look at what Ricky Pearsall is doing. It looks like ever since Kyle Shanahan had the Jalen Hurd, Dante Pettis mishaps, Danny Gray mishaps, essentially he's pretty good at scouting wide receivers in the first round or in the top 40 picks. So if you can keep doing that and college is still producing these really good wide receivers, you don't need to spend hella money on that position for the sake of continuity.
Right. Well, and that's another reason why it's difficult to compare, right? Because if you are really good at scouting any position, whether it's, let's say it's like wide receiver, right? If you're just awesome at it, you're just whatever, you know what you want, you have a talent and you can do that. Well, then you never have to pay a wide receiver because you can just let them go in free agency because you're always going to be able to draft a newer, younger player. And if you can hit enough on those, you never have to focus on that.
That's what the Chiefs do at corner. Like they always have another guy who's really good.
So when you're talking about like, well, this is what the Chiefs do at corner and, they don't pay this position and the 49ers do, it's like, well, if they're better at scouting them,
true.
That's why, and
right, because the Niners had Ambry Thomas who failed and other corners who failed. So when you actually get one who hits, don't take it for granted.
It has to be part of your thinking, right? It has to be. A couple of super chats here I want to get to. Lamont 757, YouTube channel member, says Kyle got all his toys back and will still lose. He's on the hot seat and maybe traded so we can get Ben. Moody is another wasted third round. Kyle, not him. I'm amazed at the dissatisfaction with the Niners and Kyle Shanahan after this. Like they won on Sunday and people are still mad.
Yeah, but I mean, like they won, but did like in the NFL.com power rankings, they came into the game at 13th and left the game at 13th, which I think is completely fair. Like, yeah, they won, have to win. Wins are good, but did they improve? Did they show you things that make you feel like more confident down the stretch? No, maybe. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I will say this. The defense had every reason to fold up shop, and they didn't. They almost did, but they didn't. They stopped Tampa Bay in the red zone enough to give their offense a chance to win the game at the end. And God knows they tried to give it away with those 3 straight penalties. Like that was...
I mean, technically, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, they stopped them in the red zone, but they extended the drive 4 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
But look, I'm looking for tiny little things.
Okay. Fair enough.
Juan Solo says, who do you think is a cancer to the locker room?
It's a harsh phrase.
Yeah, I don't know about a cancer, but one of the reasons I'll say this, and I said this yesterday, I love the Lenoir deal is because he's not just like a guy that shows up and does his work and, that, which is fine. I'm not bashing those guys. He's got a little swag to him. He's got attitude and swag. And I think you need that, especially this team, because they've lost some of those guys. And I do think you feel that on the field. So I love that he's going to be one of the guys that's going to be around and setting the culture because I think they need that.
Let me try to answer this question. I'm not going to use the C word, but what he's talking about is someone who could divide the locker room, who could sort of taint the locker room. And I think the most divisive thing is politics. And it's not, everyone has an opinion and it's great to talk about it and think about it. But like, Usually you do it on your own podcast or you do it somewhere else. But the person who's bringing it front and center on the 49ers is Bosa. After the game, on the field, the little dance. I mean, that's cool, man. But like, are all the players super juiced that they're like the MAGA Niners? Because that's kind of like what Bosa's making the Niners.
Can you tell can you tell me more about that? Because I didn't hear about this. So he was doing some sort of Trump MAGA thing on the field?
Yeah, he had his one sack.
Okay.
And then he did the little Trump dance. And then Floyd, and it was Okwanu and Fred Warner joined in too, and they were all doing the little Trump dance, which is like cool, whatever, man. But like, what about the people on the team who voted for Kamala and don't like him? I mean, now they're associated with that. And Bosa is so important. He's so good that when you think about teams that are like associated with Trump, it's the Niners. So I mean, we're talking about divisiveness in the locker room. I wonder, but I don't know. I mean, we talk about like the fight. Was that divisive? Maybe. I mean, maybe a bunch of people were upset and had Tabor Peppers back, but I don't know if football works that way. I wonder though about this.
Look, I mean,
I don't want to get into politics though, but he brought it up. We can stop.
Do the whole Kamala Trump thing.
I don't want to do it either.
If he's like, I did notice that he stopped doing the shrug. If he's like adopted that as his new celebration, like whatever. But
I'm just saying,
those things have the potential. If they keep winning, it's not going to be a thing. But if they lose, if they start losing, then all that stuff becomes a thing.
And can I put out one thing? So the fight happens in the fourth quarter. And I think maybe the way you remember it, you're like, oh yeah, the Niners, fell behind and they were losing and they got upset. No, they were winning. It was 20-17. They were up. Moody misses a kick and they start to melt down. Like, yo, the Lions were down big. Goff was throwing an interception a minute and they didn't do that. So to me, that's indicative of a team, a locker room that's not necessarily as tight-knit as they were in the past.
The frustration boils over. They're at a different point in their cycle right now. Like the Lions are almost in like the 2021 point of where the 49, like that's
2019.
Yeah, really, that's where they are.
Yeah.
So they don't have the years of frustration. They're not in the same spot. The 49ers are desperately trying to cling to one last ride with this core. They all know what it is. Talk to me with Detroit in 2, 3, 4 years when they've had to lose some guys. They're going to lose. It's a different thing. And that doesn't mean to take the 49ers off the hook, but I do think that is a difference. Matthew Rowley says, in a friendly way, Grant, I ran into your reaction to Purdy's draft last night. It made me smile. Rob, did you see JT's breakdown of Brock? He seemed to think he played great with an iffy scheme. I did see JT's breakdown. Couple different things. I think that the whole like Kyle Shanahan has no hot route thing like got all crazy and JT tried to address it. And JT's big point is not that, oh, there's no hot routes when people blitz. It's just that the answers that are there are more difficult than they have to be, is essentially what JT O'Sullivan is saying. And I'm paraphrasing, and I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but I think he would agree with me.
I think that's pretty good what you did. I heard it too. And what I like about JT O'Sullivan, he's extremely smart. And his analysis is very nuanced. And when people try to like regurgitate it or summarize it, a lot of that gets lost, including when I do it. So I appreciate him reminding everyone exactly what he's trying to say, what he is saying.
And he pointed out at the end of the game too, because JT's big thing is if you've got an unblocked guy, you should throw to the area of where the blitz is coming from, because that's the easiest. You could see the guy coming, you know how much time you have. And what the 49ers do a lot of times is they throw to the opposite side. So you kind of have to feel the pressure coming as you get rid of the ball, and it's a lot harder to do as a quarterback. At the end of the game, the 49ers did throw to where the blitzer was coming from. On their final drive, I think they hit Jennings twice doing that. Just real easy, snap, throw it to where the guy used to be, and he's wide open for a completion. So, yeah.
That's all JT O'Sullivan right there. You got to appreciate the collective work that Niners YouTube in general is doing. It's making football better. Got to respect it, JT.
Quality
Salute.
control is it's spreading, Grant.
And Kyle Shanahan's taking suggestions. This is a new Kyle. Wow.
Moonman says we have 3 different style running backs. We only use one type, Christian McCaffrey. Poor Jordan Mason. Relegated to 1 carry last week. He could not see the field. Christian McCaffrey played all but 8 snaps. He played more snaps than he played on Sunday, and I think only 4 games all of last year. So it was no easing in for Christian McCaffrey. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you laugh about it. It is funny because it's predictable. But to me, it's like, look, Christian McCaffrey's a better player than Jordan Mason, no question. No question. Especially what he does for the passing game. But Christian McCaffrey isn't quite himself yet. He just came back. Jordan Mason is pretty much in mid-season form, and he's having a hell of a year. And a creative quarterback, a coach like Kyle can get them both on the field. We've seen so many teams work with two running backs. The Lions do it a lot. I mean, I'd like to see them on the field at the same time. They could both be in the backfield. You could have McCaffrey in the slot. We'll put defenses in a lot of tough positions, and I think you could argue that you could be getting your 5 best weapons on the field if they're both on the. Nothing against Juszczyk, but all the things he does are like, it's like sleight of hand. He's not getting the ball. With Mason, at least, you got to worry about him getting the ball.
Yeah, I'm so off the Kyle Juszczyk train. Like, I cannot wait till next year till he's gone. Just please get rid of it. Brock was on KMBR.
It's a gimmick they don't need anymore. They have so much talent. I just don't think it's a gimmick.
Or someone else can do it for much, much cheaper. That's the thing. Like, he's not the only human on the planet that can block people. I promise you. But anyway,
yeah.
Brock was on KMBR yesterday, and he was asked really a bunch of softball questions. But the one question that they asked him that I did like was like, hey, you've been in this scheme now for Kyle Shanahan for essentially 2 years. You just beat the Bucs, who you beat in your first start way back in the day. Sort of how has the offense with you and with Kyle evolved in the 2 years? I thought this was an interesting answer from Brock.
Playing in Kyle's offense, man, I think he's, gained a lot of trust in me, and we've been able to, have some more answers and play calling going on. But we're continuing to figure each other out and learn with each other and grow with each other as we go.
So your head just shot up there in the middle of that. Tell me why, and I want to see if it's the same reason why I picked this out.
Well, what was his exact thing? The first thing he went to is Kyle has developed more trust in me.
Yes, that's the first thing he said.
Okay, so that means that the trust level wasn't very high at first, and that it's grown, but that it's not. It's growing, but it's not like he has complete trust in me. Like, it's a process, and I've earned a little bit, but it seems to me that this is something that's on Purdy's mind. I want him to trust me. I want to earn his complete trust so I can have ownership of the offense the way the top quarterbacks do in the league. And it's a work in progress.
I don't think it's crazy for Kyle Shanahan to have maybe not trust the third string rookie quarterback when he first comes into the offense.
No question.
Naturally,
absolutely.
Quarterback combination would gain more trust the longer they are together. Right. But when he said we have more answers now with play calling, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Just because of everything that we've talked about this year about, hot routes and answers and audibles and all that stuff. So what I really I'm going to try to do this next week. Hop on the conference call because I want to ask Kyle Shanahan 2 questions. 1, has Brock Purdy ever come into your office and asked for more control at the line of scrimmage? And 2, if he did, would you give it to him?
Right.
Because I'm fascinated by that. I heard the story that you were talking about a little while ago with, the guy that talked to Brock Purdy's dad, and Brock Purdy's dad kind of said that Brock is really good at that stuff, so they should let him do it more.
And it's year 3, and he knows the offense. So look, when he talks about answers, to me, he's talking about, okay, you get to the line of scrimmage, you know the play you're running, you see what the defense is doing. It's not an ideal look for what you want to run. So what do? Well, if Kyle gives you 2 plays, you can check to the second one. That's one answer. But he's talking about more answers, right? So maybe you let the quarterback change the protections. Maybe you let the quarterback literally change routes and he can hand signal to whoever's at X or Z and say, no, I want you to run a fade, or those are things that a lot of quarterbacks have the freedom to do. And Brock seems like he has the ability to do that stuff at a high level. Seems like what he's talking about. So in a very nice way, he's like, yeah, Kyle's giving me more trust. But I still think if you had him privately, he'd say, I'd like even more, and I'll earn it.
Maybe that's the case. But I do agree that he also kind of intimated that, like, he is getting more, right? It is evolving. So I guess that's good. But that's another reason why I want to ask that question. I'm going to try and pop on Monday if he has another conference call. Isaiah says 5 years, $225 million, fully guaranteed for Brock Purdy. I don't know that he's going to
get
fully guaranteed contract. But it'll probably be in the 5-year range. I don't think it'd be any shorter than that. I'd be stunned if his next contract is shorter than 5 years.
Just as long as it's not more than $45 million a year, I'm cool with it. I think that's a good number.
It's going to be more than $45 million.
I got a problem with that. But you know what? I don't root for the team. So if he gets it, I'm not going to be mad, but like you're going to have a problem with that in a few years. But we can talk about that in 2028.
Madman49, YouTube channel member, says, I think the most upsetting play that I saw was the Bosa play. Are you kidding me? What are you doing dancing with Baker? You can't get him down on a game-stealing play. Grant, I have never seen a play like that before in my life. He has Baker Mayfield's arm, and he's running with him for like 5 yards. Like, dude, pull him to the ground. Just go dead weight and just let Baker have to drag your 225-pound body. I've never seen a play like that in my entire life.
Me neither. And if the Niners had found a way to lose that game, which they were very close to doing, couple things go differently. Like we're looking at that. We're looking at Bosa's play and talking about it every day. I mean, of all the embarrassments in that game, that might have been the number one beyond Jake Moody, because who is Jake? He's a kicker. He's replaceable. You can't replace Bosa. He's getting paid. He's going to be here. I mean, he's supposed to make that play. And he didn't, and the Niners won. He couldn't close the deal. Again, like we're talking about closing for the Niners. They paid him to be the closer. And he was a dancer on that play. Like he was doing the Mamba.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
That's right. Tell him, Alec.
I said on the instant, I knew you would get that. Thank you. I said on the instant reaction show, like that play never happens to TJ Watt. TJ Watt rips Baker Mayfield's arm off, scoops up the ball, and scores a touchdown while holding on to Baker Mayfield's arm. Like
and eating it.
Yeah, right. Like it just does. And it's frustrating with Bosa because I feel like he gets to the quarterback a lot, but he doesn't actually sack him. He's either a half second late or he gets an arm on him, but the quarterback breaks it. Like, close, finish the damn play. And that play, yeah, if the Niners lose, that play goes down in infamy. Like, he's getting crushed for that. And they won, and it's going to be forgotten about in a week.
I don't know what's going on with Bosa. I'm not inside his head, but he's really not the player he was a couple of years ago. I'm not saying get rid of Bosa. He still makes a positive impact on the defense, but it's not like it was before. And it kind of feels like he's one of the more talented players, you've ever seen. And when he's locked in, he's maybe the best player in the league, but he just seems like he's been semi-interested the last year and a half. Again, I don't know. I'm not in his. He just doesn't. I don't know.
I think that everybody would say that they need more out of Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
So last year and this year, like, you need more out of him. He's done a lot of good things, but you're supposed to be, first of all, you're the anchor of the defense. You're the anchor of the position on the defense that the team itself has said is the most important, which is the defensive line. And in the big moments, like, we got to be able to believe in you. We got to be able to count on you. And not just to beat Justin School, to beat Tristan Wirfs. And you got bodied by Tristan Wirfs. And I know Bosa was very banged up going into the game. I acknowledge that. But he was healthy enough to be out there. So if you're healthy enough to be out there, you're healthy enough to be judged. And he came up wanting on Sunday.
He just seems like he's in cruise control. And to his credit, Nick Bosa on cruise control is better than most defensive ends. But they're not paying him to be on cruise control. He's in like third gear. He needs to kick it into fifth gear. That's what they're paying him for, man, especially in the fourth quarter.
Matthew Rowley says, do you think there's a chance Brock Purdy re-signs before the playoffs since he's eligible as of January 1st? Might be a way to keep the price down and avoid stress. Well, they did sign Jimmy Garoppolo to a new deal in February that year. Before the league year even started, Jimmy had his new deal. If that's part of the reason why I'm kind of stunned that the Lenoir deal got done, because if I was the agent for these players, I would be like, do nothing. Now, Lenoir especially, because he was going to hit the open market. Brock is not going to hit the open market. He's under contract for another year. He's eligible to get a new deal, but he's not a free agent. So that maybe makes it more likely that he does sign a deal quickly. But I was stunned that Lenoir got the deal, because if I was his agent, I'd be like, dude, you telling me 3 or 4 more picks this year, you get $5-10 more million.
It's true. Or you tear your ACL, so it all goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a very real thing in football. Like happened to Talanoa Hufanga. So I get it. They offer you $18.4 million a year. That might have been more than you ever expected. And you say, cool, I'll take it. And I'll take the the security for down the line. I understand that, but like with Brock Purdy, same thing pops up. They offer him whatever it is, $50 million a year. As soon as the regular season ends, he could say, man, I win the Super Bowl, I could get $70 million a year. But if I blow out my elbow again, I could get nothing. And they could say, let's see you prove it again one more time. So that's a good question. I think the Niners probably should present an offer and see if Brock Purdy, see what he does.
I remember Mike Florio talking about this once when I used to work with him at NBC, and it always stuck with me. He said it's one thing to, hear about, hey, if you wait, you can get this number and all that stuff. But when somebody literally puts a piece of paper in front of you that says, here's $92 million over 5 years, or in Brock Purdy's case, much, much more, right? Like,
and here's the signing bonus that will hit your bank account tomorrow.
And all you got to do is sign your name on, and it's real. Then it goes from being an imaginary thing that's just floating out there to like, holy crap, it's real. I could sign this piece of paper and go buy 4 cars, like
400.
That's different. It makes it different. It makes it more real. So sometimes there is a benefit to just getting a number down in front of somebody and throwing a deal, because it's more money than any of us have ever seen in our entire life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. Maybe Brock Purdy's going to be like, "Oh shucks, this is a lot of money. I'm cool with that." Or maybe he says, "Oh, you offer me 50? That's a nice baseline. Let me go win this Super Bowl. We'll talk in a couple of months, and then we can talk more about 65, 70." I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what kind of competitor he is.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Brock Purdy right now would get a contract for $55 million a year. Just whether you believe it or not, just go with me. Let's say he makes the NFC Championship game again this year. Let's say they lose. Does that number go up, or you think it would be the same? Like, is there anything he could do other than win the Super Bowl this year that would change that number drastically? If he wins the Super Bowl, that's different.
Yeah, that's a good question, because last year he was 4th in the MVP voting and he went to the Super Bowl and lost. So he might have to be 3rd in the MVP voting, which doesn't seem like it's going to happen, or win the Super Bowl. Otherwise, it's like, well, did he get better? Did he necessarily improve his value? And then right now, 12 touchdown passes and 7 picks, he might need to improve his numbers a little bit to really solidify that he should be the highest paid player in the league. But with McCaffrey back, he just might do it.
Man. And look, we're a long way from the Brock Purdy thing. Like, who knows what the hell could happen before the end of the year? He could get hurt again. Who knows? Who knows? But it is something that is going to be in the back of this team's mind as they go and build the roster and make decisions on guys. But I did love yesterday that one giant to-do item on the 49ers offseason list was scratched off, because Deommodore Lenoir is going to be sticking around for 5 more years.
Yeah, now on the offseason, I mean, are there any other players they got to re-sign? Like maybe Greenlaw, maybe Hufanga. I love Charvarius Ward, and he's going through hell right now, and he's going to get another job somewhere else, but I don't think he's coming back. It seems like at this point what the Niners need to do is pare down their roster. Like Javon Hargrave, do they need him?
No.
Debo, do they need him? Maybe. We'll see what he does the rest of the season. So they have some tough use check. Do they need him? That's what they got to do.
That's what this offseason. This is going to be, I think, a major offseason of change for the 49ers. Because I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm hoping, but I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. And so I think you're going to see big names like that go, and they're going to accelerate this thing. And it's so much easier to do. It's such an easier thing to sell, right? If you're John Lynch and you could say, hey, look at Pearsall and Pooney and Renardo Green and pretty much everyone we drafted last year. You've accelerated that process so much. They might have 3-4 starters in this draft class. Sometimes you don't get that in 2 or 3 draft classes. So they have a path to sort of sell this PR wise to fans that they didn't have, on March 1st of this year.
What will be interesting though is, let's say the Niners don't do that. We're not assuming, but thinking about a hypothetical where they do what they did the last few years. They regain their identity and they go on a run. But what if they don't? What if the 2024 49ers is a team that's coming off a second Super Bowl loss, and it doesn't have that same inner belief and drive that it had before, and this season keeps going like it is now, and they finish 9-8, 10-7. They don't win the division. They're a wild card team. Maybe they go to the playoffs and lose in the first round or the second round. Like that would be a very bitter, disappointing season. And I don't think they would fire Kyle, even though I don't think they would do that. So if they don't hold him accountable, would they put the blame implicitly on Brock and give him less, or would they just fire Brian Schneider and call it a day? Like, I don't know if that's enough.
I think it'd be an easier sell for the 49ers. You'd be like, look, we went as far as we could go with this core. Now we need to get the new core, right? And that's how they could start selling like, hey, Charvarius Ward, thank you for everything, but we got to move on. We got to get younger at the position. Hey, Deebo Samuel, sorry. We're moving on. We've got Pearsall. We think Cowing is really good now too. Brandon Ayuk's going to be coming back. You know, I think really Kittle and McCaffrey are going to be sticking around. After that, I think they're going to be making some major changes.
I want to go to irresponsible speculation time, and then we'll do bet US. Okay. So last year, the first year and a half for Purdy was kind of easy. Guys were wide open. He was great, but Kyle was really helping him. And you could say it was training wheels, whatever. He was called a dink and dunk quarterback for. He was getting no respect for the stuff he did and the numbers he was putting up and the wins he was getting. This year, it's way harder. Everyone acknowledges, man, he's got to hold the ball longer. The separation isn't there as much. The yak isn't there as much. The play action isn't there as much. The pocket movement isn't there as much. And it's like, Kyle's like, well, I have to do this. I mean, my hands are tied. Is it possible that Kyle's like, you know what? Before before you give this guy $65 million a year, let me take the training wheels off. Just look at what it looks like when I'm not helping him. Because you might, if you give him a 10-year contract, who knows? He might be here beyond me. Like, you need to know what you're really investing in. And let's take the Kyle Shanahan variable out of it. This is what it looks like when he's playing quarterback like the rest of the league plays quarterback. And you know what? He's had some really good moments. He's also had some bad moments. So I wonder if that's very irresponsible speculation. But is Kyle trying to show the owners like, are you sure?
Or show himself, maybe.
True.
And I'll say this. If that's the case, I don't hate it. Like, I understand it. I'll say that I would understand it, right? Because when you're about to make that big of a purchase and you know everything that comes with it, you know how it's going to affect every single other decision that you have to make in your job. Every other player on the roster is going to be affected by the money that Brock Purdy gets. You would like as much information as possible before you make that decision. I know I would. God, I get paralyzed by analyzing everything, but I would like as much information as possible before making that decision. And maybe Kyle thought, let's see what it looks like. I think we're good enough to win even while we do this. And I need to know before I go to Jed at the end of the year and say, that's my guy. Because that's part of it too, right? Jed's not paying Brock if Kyle is like, I don't know about this guy. He needs Kyle's endorsement.
It's true. And for whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan still loves Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins is still out there. And make fun of him if you want, but like, his numbers aren't worse than Purdy's this year. They're pretty much neck and neck with their numbers. So if Brock says, I want $65 million, and Kyle privately is like, you're not that much better than Kirk, buddy. Like, I'll just go trade for Kirk. I mean, it's not what any Niner fan in the world wants to hear, but I'm trying to get inside the mind of a genius. I'm not one.
I don't think the Kirk Cousins stuff will ever die. Like, the Falcons used the top 10 pick on a quarterback last year. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility they're moving on from Kirk.
True. And can we take a minute to like walk back our apologies to Sam Darnold? Like, you are who we freaking thought you were. And if JJ McCarthy hadn't gotten injured, they'd probably bench Darnold now. He's leading the league in turnovers on a team where it's like your one job is to not turn the ball over. That's it. That's all you got to do, man. The defense is A+, and you're over here messing it up. So, yeah, that's Sam.
Dude, they almost lost to the Jags with Mac Jones as quarterback.
Because of Sam.
He's not. He's the guy he always was.
He's a disaster waiting to happen. Can he move? Can he throw? Disaster waiting to happen. We got to do that bet US before we forget. I'm sorry.
No, I know. I'm just
got you.
Don't the Vikings have first round playoff loss written all over them?
If they don't fall out entirely, the Niners might take their spot in the wild card because they're not winning the division.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, let's do a couple super chats and then we'll get to the bet US. Corey Soto says it will be a mistake if they extend Purdy to a franchise contract. You need elite Look at the last 20 Super Bowls, and our elite roster is aging and can't compensate anymore. We need a quarterback who can compensate.
Well, we'll see. I mean, elite's hard to define. He looked excellent on Sunday. He was going against the worst defense in football. He's got a lot more to prove. He got a lot more football to play. It's an interesting topic.
It depends on what you mean by elite. Do you mean elite processing? Do you mean elite scrambling? Do you mean elite arm strength? Do you mean elite accuracy? It depends what you want. I do think Brock does have a couple of elite I think his escapability and his scrambling ability is elite. He's not the fastest, but the scrambling ability, I think it's right up there with anybody in the league. I do. I think it's awesome.
If you can win when you're getting paid a lot of money and the rest of the supporting cast isn't that good, I think that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
That's all that matters, however you do it. And I think that maybe that's what Kyle is trying to show people. Like, okay, well, Ayuk's gone, McCaffrey's gone. What if it's just a more even playing field for this guy? How good is he really? And I think the answer so far is he's been very good this year, but he hasn't been elite. But there's still another 8 games plus the playoffs to go.
I think just draft another Christian McCaffrey. Why don't they just do that? Like, come on.
Why not?
Yeah,
I mean, Lions got one, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Running backs are around. They could do it. They could do it. I'm not gonna knock them because they got Isaac Guerrero, and I scoffed when they drafted him. So as long as they got Bobby Turner there, they got a chance.
Let's take a look at the game on Sunday against the Seahawks. Right now, the Niners are favored by 6.5 points over Seattle. The Seahawks have not beaten the 49ers since Russell Wilson left. I know things aren't great with the Niners. I know they have their flaws. They beat the Seahawks earlier this season. I got to go with the Niners on this one still.
Yeah, as long as their quarterback is Geno Smith, I just don't have confidence. I don't think he has much confidence in himself to beat this team. He has a nice arm. He'll make 2 or 3 throws in this game that'll be like, okay, I see it. I see why the Seahawks like him. But then he'll also make 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 plays. You're like, absolutely not, man. This quarterback is not good. He's average at best, in my opinion. And yeah, that team. I don't even know about that coach. Like, I feel like sometimes teams hire a coach and you can kind of feel right away, like, you know what? This guy doesn't really have it. He's supposed to be, doesn't seem like he has any type of personality. He's supposed to be this scheme guru, and his defense sucks. So I don't know. We'll see how quickly he loses that locker room.
Interesting. So what you're saying is a really, really hot coordinator may not necessarily be a great head coach if you hire him?
Maybe not. He's a 37-year-old guy. He had John Harbaugh doing a whole lot. All the leadership stuff over there. So now you get over here and you're replacing Pete Carroll, who was a big presence. And he doesn't seem like he can translate whatever he was doing in Baltimore. Now, Baltimore's defense is struggling without him. So yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, I don't know. Bringing in a defensive coach too. You brought in a defensive coach. Why? Because that's your culture? Because you did that with Pete Carroll? I don't know about that one, guys.
Yeah, I'm just saying, maybe Ben Johnson won't automatically win a Super Bowl the second.
I knew you were going there.
As head coach. I
knew you were going there.
Well, I'm going.
You know what? Kyle Shanahan was that hot coordinator once upon a time.
100%. And sometimes you get Kyle, and sometimes you get, Brian Dable, who everybody thought was God's gift. But anyway, if you want to take the Niners, please do it with BetUS. You can receive 150% on your first deposit and 125% on your second and third deposit up to $2,000. All you got to do is use code YouTube150. That's YouTube150. And if you go with BetUS, you get 24/7 personalized service every single day of the year, a fast and easy withdrawal process, and 10% back on your net losses twice a year. I don't know anybody else that does that. So thank you to BetUS for sponsoring my channel and for sponsoring Grant's channel. We always do appreciate that. I'm glad you picked up on that, Grant, because I was laying it on the hot coordinator stuff pretty thick. So thanks for finally picking up on that.
It's a good point, though. Like, what do we know about Ben Johnson's ability to lead men? Nothing. You know why? Because Dan Campbell's really freaking good at that. Ben Johnson could go somewhere and be like, oh, he has no voice. He's socially awkward. Like who knows? We've seen that stuff before. Like, you have to have some type of confidence and authenticity to be a leader. And at least Kyle has those things. He's not very much of he's not a very charismatic person at all, like the way Harbaugh is, but seems like he has a ton of confidence and he seems like he's true to himself, which goes a long way. I don't know if Ben Johnson's like that. And before hiring him or firing Kyle, they should probably figure that out. I don't know. Have you heard him talk? I haven't heard him talk.
I have not heard him talk either, so I don't know. But like, do you have faith in the Yorks to hire a good head coach if they were to like?
You should. You should. They hired Kyle. You love Kyle. They're 1-for-1 in the last 7 years, 8 years.
I think that Kyle hired them to be like, they were so desperate to get a coach because they had just fired Chip Kelly. They had fired Tom Sula the year before that. They ran Jim Harbaugh out of town, who was wildly successful. And they didn't even really, Harbaugh picked them too. Like, that's the thing. I feel like they have stumbled into the good head coaches. When they've been responsible for doing a search, we got Jim Tom Sula and Chip Kelly.
True. And we're assuming that even if Ben Johnson is the best guy and is a future superstar, that he'd want to come to the 49ers. Who knows? Maybe he's like, it's an older roster. You just ran off Kyle. I really respect Kyle. I mean, if he can't succeed here, am I really better than him? Do I love Brock Purdy? It's not my choice. This team is really, I can't put the team together. Maybe I'd rather go to a blank slate with a young quarterback who's more, I mean, who knows how he feels? It's no guarantee you get Ben Johnson. And there's no guarantee he's great.
And
that being said, fire Kyle, hire Ben Johnson. Please, please, please.
I'll say too, there was a report that came out, well, Ben Johnson's going to be very choosy about where he goes. All that is saying you got to pay Ben Johnson money. That's all it is. He wants a lot of money. He thinks he's worth a lot of money. And it's not like, oh, he's going to be really careful about where he goes. No, I just think he wants X amount of dollars. And if he doesn't get it, then he's going to stay with the Lions, keep having great offenses, and keep, it's not like he's going to forget how to coach in a year. He'll still be a hot candidate a year from now or 2 years from now if he wants to stick with Detroit. So I just, sometimes that these things get said in the media that are just complete BS. If you pay Ben Johnson the money, he will coach for your team.
Yeah, look, I understand that Rob in particular is very not nervous, but cautious about the idea of just moving on from Kyle and bringing someone else in. But I still think at a certain point, if a guy over 8 years, 10 years, 12 years shows that he's not capable of winning it all in that particular situation, as scary as it seems, you got to keep looking. And the Niners, I mean, Kyle himself did that with Jimmy. They had a successful quarterback. They paid Jimmy Garoppolo. He had good numbers. He had a good win record, but they felt that they were never going to win the Super Bowl with him. So they made a tough decision. They traded for Trey Lance, didn't work out, brought in Brock Purdy. Now they're going to give him a long time to prove it. But Kyle's in year 8. And if he can't do it this year or next year, like eventually you got to say, we got to go back out into the wilderness and try to find something better, as scary as that sounds, unless you're cool with being a high-level loser. And I know you're not, Rob. You are not a high-level loser. That's one thing I know about you.
If you told me the Niners were going to fire Kyle Shanahan and hire Andy Reid, I'd be like, yeah, I'd go for that. If you told me they were going to fire Kyle Shanahan and bring in Bill Belichick with like a Ben Johnson offensive coordinator, like maybe I could go for that. But I'm not getting rid of a head coach that's gotten me to 4 out of the last 5 NFC Championship games and 2 Super Bowls for the completely unproven Ben Johnson. No way. That is not a move I'm going to make. So give me the it depends on who the candidates are. It depends on what Kyle Shanahan does this year, next year. Then I'll make my decision. I'm not under no circumstances can you ever replace Kyle.
But again, I wouldn't want to bring in Bill Belichick to replace Kyle. I don't think what you're looking for is someone more like Andy Reid, someone in his 60s or 70s who's had more proven success. You need to be bold here. Kyle Shanahan was 37 when he was hired. Sean McVay was 30. You have to have some foresight and actually have a little bit of faith that you can accurately judge these guys coming up. And the Yorks got to feel pretty good. They got Kyle. They know Kyle. They know his strengths and weaknesses. If they're going to replace him, they should have a pretty good feel of why that guy is different. If they're just shooting in the dark, then they're screwed. But I don't know. I'm a big Jed York guy. I have confidence that he can do this, make the right decisions. Love Jed and his parents, his sisters.
Great. As you sit in their building and do the show,
they're great.
I love the Yorks. Kyle Shanahan is still the 18th oldest head coach. He's still young by head coach. He's only 44. It's crazy. Dan Campbell's older than Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, Kyle's he's right in the middle. It's crazy. He is almost fully gray now. He's
been through some
stressful
things.
Time.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's seen some stress. Michael Carroll, excuse me, says make Nick Bosa great again and don't overuse Christian McCaffrey or you'll break him and we'll get it. And we got no chance at the playoffs. Look, I was pleasantly surprised that Christian McCaffrey's name was not mentioned in the injury report. He was able to play all those snaps. It doesn't seem like he's had any issues coming out of that game. Now we'll see with practice today and the rest of the week. Christian said after the game he felt great. So knock on wood, at least for 1 week, hopefully that didn't do anything to hurt Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. My thing with Christian, like, he was really good. And it's the most important thing is that he didn't re-injure himself. But I just didn't feel like he was, I don't know. I'm sure he did break a tackle. He just didn't seem like he was running as hard as he used to. And I'm afraid that what he's going to be doing this year is like playing a little cautiously because he knows what he could possibly do or what could possibly happen to him. And I just wonder, even if he's 100% healthy, if he's going to play like he did last year. And if he doesn't, you understand it. Is there like something in the back of his head saying, if I go 110, am I going to pop it? Am I going to rupture it? I don't know. We'll see. Because it seemed like 3 yards a carry. That's not the Christian I remember.
Christian McCaffrey in his first game back after only putting on pads like 3 times in 8 weeks, put up 107 yards from scrimmage, made a ridiculous fingertip catch 30 yards down the field while in a full sprint. The dude is so damn good, and they desperately need him. He cooks the Seahawks, by the way, in his career. He averages 116 yards rushing per game against the Seahawks in his career and 53 receiving yards per game. So basically 165 yards per game against the Seahawks. He destroys them. They're going to need him this week. I just feel so much better about them with him there. That's why, I see the number. I'm like, give the points. I don't even care because they should mollywhip them. And the fact that he's back, second game now, I feel really good about it.
He's a hell of a receiver. He's still a good route runner. He still has good hands. He still can run. And I love the idea of giving him 7, 8, 9 targets a game, 1 deep throw a game. Like, that's all great. As a runner was where I was concerned. He was a great runner last year. This year, in this first game back, forget the 3 yards of carry. 4 yards after contact in the game. 35 yards before contact, 4 yards after. That's not Christian. And that's not Jordan Mason either. Like, Jordan Mason was among the league leaders in yards after contact. So if he's going to play like that and sort of go down on first contact because his Achilles are an issue, then that's good to know. And you can't give him all the carries. Like, he's not going to be the guy he was last year unless he starts running harder and getting yards after contact. That's why they got to keep playing Jordan Mason.
Michael Carroll says, you missed how I spelled Christian Mike Half-Hurdy's name. Sorry.
You just went right through that.
I did.
Okay.
You know what it was? Because I thought it was a typo. And so I was reading it on the fly. I didn't read it ahead of time. So I was like, oh, he mistyped. I'll correct it for him. I tried to be too smooth there, Michael. So that's my bad. I apologize. Don Giovanni.
Better to be too smooth than not smooth enough, though. That's what I got to say.
That's my philosophy. Don says McVay's overrated as bleep. Only win with a super team and hasn't done bleep since. I think McVay's a better coach than Shanahan. First of all,
if you have a super team, win the Super Bowl. He did it.
Like, he won a Super Bowl, and he has shown an adaptability that Kyle Shanahan doesn't seem as likely to show or as open to show. McVay has, to his credit.
Is McVay a better play caller than Kyle? I don't know. But is McVay a better head coach? I do think that McVay has a emotional component that Kyle just doesn't really have. Like, McVay has all this. Like, he's like Robert Saleh used to be. There's all this. What is the word I'm looking? Enthusiasm. That would be nice to see that you like to see from a head coach. It's helpful. Now, Bill Belichick didn't have it. Kyle doesn't have it, but a lot of guys do.
He does have an emotional. I don't want to use the word intelligence. I'll just say awareness. And one of the things, I'll never forget this. I was at the owners' meetings producing Pro Football Talk. And when you're at the owners' meetings, you have head coaches and GMs come on the show. And I'll never forget when Sean McVay came by, he went to every single crew member that was on the set and introduced himself and said hello and shook their hand. And I was like, my God, this guy is a freaking, like, he's a mover and a shaker. Like, he He's winning hearts and minds, like
so easy to do that.
the fact that he even thought to do that. It just
Takes
shows,
nothing away from you. It's smart. Kyle would never do it. It's easy.
No, Kyle didn't do it. Actually,
No.
we had Kyle Shanahan on, and he did not do that. Nor did I expect him to. By the way, that I've never seen anybody else do that. But I just remember thinking about Sean McVay, like, damn, this guy, like he gets it. He doesn't think like other NFL head coaches. A couple more super chats. Rafael Flores says the Lions have Sonic and Knuckles. The Niners have Mario and Luigi, aka Christian McCaffrey and JP. Is that what we're going with, Mario and Luigi?
I like that. If we're gonna go with Sega Genesis, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, that would kind of work. Yeah. Although these guys, Sonic and Knuckles, these guys were born way after Sonic, and they don't know who the hell Sonic and Knuckles are.
And also, like, they gave themselves that nickname. I don't like
True.
when you give yourself a nickname.
What about Tails? No one remembers Tails.
I love Tails.
I love Tails.
I was a
What
Tails.
happened to him? It was 3.
No respect.
No respect.
Gavin Shimabukuro says, Jed said winning Super Bowls is the goal. Kyle has proven he can't. He's reached his ceiling unless he makes changes to the way he does things. He needs to go.
Season isn't over, Gavin. They're going to win the Super Bowl this year. They're going on the run. Wait for it. Wait for it.
People want change for change's sake, I think. I'm amazed at the anger for Kyle Shanahan.
Not many coaches make it to year 9.
Yeah.
Not many coaches make it to year 9. The ones that do almost always have a ring. So
Fair.
for him to make it to year 9, obviously he does a lot of good things, but the pressure ratchets up every year. That's just life.
But not many of the coaches that have coached as long as he has have done the things that he's done. They have not won at the level he has won at. That's also true.
That is true. Not many coaches have had the roster he's had the last 5 years. Like, he helped put it together for sure. But has the roster overperformed or underperformed the last 5 years? That's a topic for debate as well.
I think it's accurately performed. I think it's performed.
Well, it doesn't necessarily speak that well of a coach who's supposed to be the best. Usually, like, look at the Chiefs right now. It's not a good team, and yet they haven't lost in a year. Because, wow, they have the best coaches in the league on offense and defense, not to mention the quarterback, who, frankly, isn't playing that well this year.
So 49ers, just get the best coaches and the best quarterback. I think
Don't settle for second best. You don't. You just don't. Sorry.
Well, they can't hire Andy Reid. So what are they supposed to do?
I mean, you got to find someone who can beat him.
They
And
try.
Kyle Shanahan has shown he can't. You can't beat Andy Reid. People have had some success against Andy Reid. Kyle isn't one of those people. So I would sort of look, that's the one team in the way. It's the one team in the way, and it's the same for Baltimore, and it's the same for Buffalo. It's the same for the whole league. But if you objectively can't beat the one team you got to beat, what are you going to do? Keep trying and doing nothing different? Maybe you do that. Do nothing different.
Do what McVay did and hope you don't have to play those guys, which who knows what the AFC playoffs are going to be awesome to watch. I can't even wait for that because no matter which teams get in, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. This might be Baltimore's year. Wow, they're really freaking good. And you could argue that this would be a year to give the MVP to a running back. I mean, Derrick Henry's leading the league in touchdowns, yards from scrimmage, attempts. I mean, everything that you could if you're not a quarterback. He's pretty good.
Still. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you, Grant. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please like and subscribe to both YouTube channels. My YouTube channel, which just went over 15,000 subs this week. Thank you, everybody. Or Grant's YouTube channel, which is over 105,000 subs. Anyway, congratulations on that, sir. Can't wait to see the plaque. But enjoy the week, everybody. Thank you again to BetUS. We appreciate you for sponsoring this video. And just a reminder, once again, you can get a deposit bonus. Just use code YouTube150 if you sign up for BetUS. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.